Israel announced that its military is going to pause operations in some areas of the Gaza Strip in order to allow for improved flow of aid into that region. And this move, of course, is coming as photos of malnourished kids sparked some concerns late last week. And some of those concerns were also shared in the White House, which recognized the role that Hamas has played in preventing food from reaching Gazans. But the White House is also saying that Israel also needs to do more. But will Hamas respond by pushing harder to sabotage aid efforts in order to use hungry Gazans as some sort of weapon in their war against Israel? Well, here to discuss all of this is Ruthie Blum. She's a columnist and senior contributing editor at the Jewish News Syndicate. She is also a former advisor at the office of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Ruthie, coming to us live from Israel in Tel Aviv. Welcome back to Washington Watch. Thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you so much for having me again.
Well, listen, I know it's late there. Let me just start by saying thank you for staying up late to join us. But what can you tell us about what Israel has been doing in the effort to get aid to those in the Gaza Strip?
Okay, I will tell you, and my voice is hoarse from having to repeat this all the time and argue with people who are ignorant or ill-willed. And you are not among those people. First of all, let me just set the record straight. There is no famine in Gaza. So in that respect, the fact that Israel is stepping up all the food drops and flooding Gaza with food is not a good move, because it's almost like an admission as though there is famine in Gaza. The photos you mentioned at the beginning, you mentioned photos of malnourished children. Every single photo that circulated on front pages of newspapers and on the internet were children who had genetic diseases. One of them, one of these children is actually right now in Italy, thanks to Israel having taken him and his mother and brother there for medical treatment. It has nothing to do with starvation. Second, the accusation that Israel is purposely starving people is absolutely outrageous. It's a lie, it's a blood libel, and Hamas spread it. And unfortunately, all the people who either hate Israel or who are just sick and tired of hearing about the war are buying it hook, line, and sinker.
Yeah, and that's why we want to get the record straight. On the other side, Ruthie, tell us what Hamas has actually been doing to prevent aid from getting to the Gazans.
Okay, so throughout the war, and it's going on 2 years. I mean, October 7th will be 2 years since the vile massacre that Hamas committed, and atrocities and kidnapping at that time of 251 Israelis and also foreign nationals. Now, what Hamas has been doing all along is two things. One is stealing the aid and selling it at exorbitant prices to Gazans who need it. And they were selling it all along in order to have money to keep their terror machine going. But more complicated than that is that in the beginning of the war, and most of the first year of the war, the UNRWA was providing the aid, and UNRWA is in cahoots with Hamas. And we know that because not only were hostages held in homes of UNRWA employees, but at the moment, the UN there are about something like 900 trucks with food and aid rotting at the Gaza border, and the UN refuses to distribute it. Why? Because of the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, a private enterprise of the United States and Israel that has managed to separate Hamas from the civilians of Gaza and direct the food right to those people who need it, to keep it away from Hamas. And of course, the UN doesn't want that. Certainly Hamas doesn't want it.
Wow. Well, You bring up some fascinating points. I was struck by a comment that Prime Minister Netanyahu made where he said Israel is now really facing an 8-front war, with the 8th front being the battle for truth, which you're laying out here. Is it clear to say that Hamas would be willing to at least present the appearance of Gazans starving to death in order to use that as a weapon against Israel? Isn't that really what they're trying to do?
Well, of course. And notice that when did this hysteria begin? When the so-called ceasefire negotiations held in Qatar with an Israeli delegation, an American delegation in Qatar and Egypt, trying to negotiate for Hamas, whoever they are, living it up in Doha in Qatar. To somehow get a ceasefire, to have the release of 10 out of the 20 living hostages and 18 or 15 out of the 30 dead hostages. And these talks have been going on for weeks, and Hamas keeps upping the ante. And by the way, this is also crucial. Its number 2 demand was that the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation be kicked out of Gaza and not distribute food. Interesting, as though Hamas, in other words, if Hamas cared that there's starvation, why would it want to eliminate the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation? And why would the UN want to do it? Because that's not their aim. Their aim is to starve Gazans, or at least make it look like they're starving, so that the international community will hop to it and start to say that Israel is being evil. Now, unfortunately, they're successful at it. As you see, that 8th front, and first of all, these are blood libels. Just
a few seconds left, Ruthie.
I just wanted to say the Nazis would be proud of this propaganda.
Ruthie Blum, columnist and senior contributing editor, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate you being on the tip of the spear, and particularly tonight for staying up late for us here on Washington Watch. Thank you so much.